a little bit of the bubbly.
Good afternoon, boys and girls, or good evening, I should say. Episode 4 of the Winged Eagle podcast is back with you a day early this week. I wanted to come up here before Friday because it was just easier for me. I've got the whole day off today, and I thought it would be nice to come up here more during prime time when most of you are home, hopefully home from work, and enjoying a relaxing Thursday evening. So hopefully you're able to join and follow along with us here tonight. I think this is going to be the best podcast yet. Now that we're in a full month of doing these now, I think this one should be, you know, one of the most easy flowing episodes, I hope, knock on wood. Thank you to those of you who tuned in yesterday where I did an impromptu live stream of This Day in History live stream. I realized that September 4th was yesterday, and that is the anniversary of WCW's Monday Nitro debut on TNT. And since AEW hits the TNT network next month, I thought that would be a perfect video to do. And we had a couple of hiccups there because I have two cats, and they were running around making a ruckus during the live stream, which was really pissing me off. But I live in California, and it costs about a Tijuana boob job per month to live here on your own. And it's just, I don't have a big house. I don't have a studio dedicated to these. So sometimes we have some feline interruptions. But hopefully this podcast will go smoothly, and these little bastards will leave us the hell alone. Like I said, we got a ton of stuff to get into tonight, as is the usual with these podcasts. I will be paying only slight attention to the chat, glancing at it every now and then. I will be sure to answer all of the super chats. The last couple of weeks, I think I've missed one or two just from missing them when I go back and read them. So if you give me one right away, I probably won't see it. I'm going to scroll back and answer a few of those at a time in between some of the stuff we're talking about here in order to make the podcast flow. You guys know the drill. That's the way we've been doing things. But aside from that, we're going to get into wrestling news first. I think that's going to be the format going forward on this podcast. I like it. I like going through all the news, you know, outside of Raw and Smackdown and WWE and behind the scenes stuff. Hitting that stuff up first, I think, is a good way to start the podcast. Then we will review this past week's Monday Night Raw and Smackdown Live, talk about the Clash of the Champions, talk about the King of the Ring tournament, which I think has been fabulous. And I've got some opinions on that. And all the wrestling news we're going to get into are things including the WWE draft that's been reported to be taking place in October. Chris Jericho losing the AEW title and then getting it back, so somebody stole it, or he just lost it and it has been returned to him. That was a whole fiasco this week. We've got major changes to WWE creatively behind the scenes, and maybe a couple of other things here in my notes as well. But before we jump into things, I do want to just pop over here to the chat and say hi and see if there are any super chats that need to be answered right up front, and then we'll move into things here. What's our audience in here? I cannot tell. Oh, not very many. Less than 100 in here so far, which is fine. These podcasts have been doing pretty well, you know, view-wise and stuff, since I've been doing them live, and I appreciate all of you sticking with me, you know, during this change into the live format. It's saving me a ton of time and allowing me to get a lot more things done. So I'm enjoying myself so far. And hopefully you guys can see and hear me. All of the audio and visual problems I was having initially, I think I've cleared up, so we should be good there too. Super Chai, Piboon. Thank you, man, for the $5. You're awesome. Will you talk about WWE Draft on October 11th? Yep, that is on the list, buddy. I appreciate it. As for the rest of you, Joey, Austin, Vontae, good to see you in here. Devin, Ramon, Brian, Spunk, Kyle, Wheezy, good. I got a mod in here. David, Julian, old Sammy. All right, cool. Pretty decent little chunk of people in here. So, yeah, let's start getting into stuff here. I don't even know what to get into first, but I think there can probably only be one subject, and that is Chris Jericho losing, like actually physically losing the championship belt that he won at All Out. 2 days later, or 1 day later, whatever it is, he lands in Tallahassee at the airport there. His limousine drives him to a Longhorn Steakhouse, which I think is just hilarious. And apparently Jericho had picked up the wrong bag at the airport while he was there. Excuse me. So while he's at Longhorn, the limo driver drives back to the airport to give the bag back to its rightful owner. And apparently when the limo driver returned to Longhorn to pick up Jericho, the belt was no longer in the limousine. So this was just a huge embarrassment, but also pretty funny. And I got to give credit to AEW and Jericho. They were very lighthearted about this. I mean, what a way to start. I mean, first you've got Bret Hart unveiling the title at Double or Nothing in kind of a lackluster segment, and I believe Bret even fell off the stage as he was leaving. And now you have Jericho win the title, and then it gets stolen or lost at the airport. Are you kidding me? You know, this title is not off to a good start. You know what I mean? So I think it's cool that All Elite Wrestling and Jericho, everybody made the best of the situation. Jericho with his amazing post-match interview and all of the things he was getting into after he won the title with the bubbly that I had to include in the intro here. And he's just magnificent. So after all of that, he does all of his celebrating. He releases another video. This time he's in a hot tub with another bottle of bubbly, and he's pouring it in the glass, but he's drinking it out of the bottle. I don't know. And he vows to get his title back. He's launching a worldwide investigation, and he's demanding that the owner return it. And basically, he's just promising that he'll get the belt back. Well, I guess earlier on today, it was returned, or maybe late last night. The belt was returned to Chris Jericho. Somebody delivered it to the Tallahassee Police Department, claiming that it was found on the side of the road. Now, my initial instinct was telling me, holy shit, whoever took this got spooked during the media coverage and just, kind of turned it in and claimed they found it. But the the man who found it was actually issued a reward. His name is, I have it here somewhere, Frank Price. He was given $200 for bringing the belt in, and he claims he found it on the side of the road, and he speculated in an interview with the Tallahassee Democrat, which I guess is a magazine, that the bag may have been left on the back of the limo, and it drove away and fell off. That seems pretty likely. So maybe this guy isn't really the one who stole it, or maybe whoever did stole it chucked it out the window, but it has been found. The Tallahassee Police Department tweeted, then deleted a photo of them holding the belt. I put it in the thumbnail here, so I don't know if maybe the captain or whoever said, yo, take that down, not a good idea. But that was taken down relatively quickly here. But the bottom line is the AEW was missing for one day. It turned up. Jericho has it back. He has since released another video on social media with the belt around his waist, and he's sporting an insane sunburn. I don't know what the hell he's doing, but he's medium well. He better be careful. Just red as shit. So Jericho's been doing a lot of drinking, a lot of partying the past couple days. He's so entertaining. I mean, this is one of the reasons why I'm glad that Jericho won the belt over Paige. Because could you imagine if Paige was the champion and this happened? I'm sure he would be cool about it too, but he wouldn't be as cool as Jericho. Jericho's just fucking hilarious. So I found this whole thing very entertaining. Some people speculate that this might have been all a work. This might have all been planned to get extra coverage or extra publicity, and I'm just not buying it. That's not what I'm feeling. When a police department gets involved in all of that, I don't know. And plus, if it was, I would stretch it out longer than this. I even did some fantasy booking last night on Twitter. I said, wouldn't it be cool? I know people are sick of hearing his name because we know he's not coming back, but wouldn't it be cool if Jericho could not find the belt? The AEW title belt remains missing. It's a mystery. Nobody knows where it is. Days go by. Weeks go by. Jericho, during this time, is making semi-daily videos on social media, upping the reward to find his precious title. I'll pay you $1,000, $10,000, $20,000. And like a month goes by, and he's got the reward up to now like $500,000 or something like that. Maybe even $1 million if they want to get ridiculous. And nobody is coming forward. Finally, Jericho just says, fuck it. And challenges on TNT, challenges the Thief to a match at Full Gear. Fine, if nobody's going to come forward, I'll give you a chance to have that belt yourself, to where you don't have to hide anymore. You can own that belt. All you got to do is beat me in a match. I'll put the belt on the line. Just show up at Full Gear on November 9th. And he does this on TNT, and the show goes off the air. One day later, not an hour later, not right after, but a full day, like lunchtime the next day, without warning, middle of the day, when fans are probably not even thinking about wrestling, CM Punk tweets out a photo of the All Elite Wrestling title inside the refrigerator. And that's it. Maybe sitting next to a bottle of non-alcoholic bubbly. Tell me that wouldn't be awesome shit. Don't do it on TV. Don't announce the match on TV. Announce a match. Announce a pay-per-view main event match via photo of a refrigerator. How many times has that been done? I just think that would be so cool. Now, we know that's never going to happen, but for those of you video game players or people who like to daydream, do fantasy booking or anything like that, you can imagine that scenario and how awesome it would be for all of us to witness that. So, I don't know. Just a thought. Just a thought. Yeah, CM Punk, you guys understand. My cats did not take the belt. That did not happen. All right, I'm just peeking over here at the chat real quick, making sure everybody's behaving themselves. Spectra, thank you for the $5, dude. I appreciate it. Right when I decided to take a WWE break, they finally turned Bayley heel. Ugh. I guess I'm going to eyeball again. Well, yeah, I recommend it, and thank you for stopping by tonight. At least I'll keep you informed, right? Oh, shit, did I just, hold on, I think I just messed up my camera. I just bumped the table. See, I'm still getting used to these podcasts, so sometimes I bump things and screw it up. Anyway, I think I lowered myself there. Anywho, but yeah, in the meantime there, Spectre, if you don't want to watch and you just want to hang out and watch me instead, I'll keep you updated as to what's going on with Bayley and all that stuff, because sometimes that shit can be hard to sit through. But so far, what Bayley's done and her explanation on Smackdown has been pretty good and pretty fun to watch. And I'll be talking about that later when I do my Raw and Smackdown reviews. Anyway, making sure I look all right here. Let's go to the next thing on my list as far as wrestling news goes. So that kind of puts to bed the whole Jericho belt thing. It was fun. I thought it was entertaining. I thought Jericho and AEW handled the situation like pros. WWE, I'm surprised they didn't take any further spoofs or shots at them. The only thing that really happened was Corey Graves made some mention about Drake Maverick taking his lady to taking a limo to a chain restaurant or something like that on SmackDown. That's the only thing that they really mentioned about it. But I was kind of hoping they would do a little bit more poking fun at that pretty hilarious situation. But I'm glad Jericho has his precious belt back. Pretty hilarious. I also want to talk about some major WWE creative changes that apparently have taken place. You know what? I'm going to fix this camera one more time as we're going here. I still feel like I'm not where I want to be. There we go. I felt like I was sinking down. You ever seen those like news bloopers where they'll do like a split screen, like via satellite interview with somebody, and somebody on one side just starts like lowering down the screen? So I was worried I was going to turn into one of those people, and I ain't trying to be on any blooper shows. So pardon me as we deal with live adjustments to the podcast. But I want to talk about these changes that have taken place backstage in WWE creatively. Now, I am really kind of out of the loop in terms of who the writers are these days. Now, there's a few names that I'm going to mention here that I have heard of and I was aware, like Ed Koskey, who's been with the company for a long time. But there's some other guys that sometimes I just kind of lose track of who's in charge of Raw, who's in charge of SmackDown. But apparently, Ryan Ward, who was the lead writer of SmackDown, is no longer in that position. I guess he's still in the company or taking a leave of absence. Now, most people are speculating that his issues here are Vince McMahon related. We have heard some news reports in the past few weeks about Vince McMahon tearing up SmackDown scripts literally 2 hours before the show. Now, I don't know if tearing up the scripts is an exaggeration or an embellishment, if Vince is actually literally ripping them up, or if he's just saying, I don't like this, let's redo it. Either way, I've talked about this before, just for the mental health of these writers and these people that work for this maniac. Can you imagine? You know, what's your motivation to pour your heart and soul into a script? What's your motivation to put forth the best product you can when your batshit boss can just come around and tear it up at any time? I mean, I can't. Vince is the head of a billion-dollar company. I'm not going to tell him how to be a boss. Jesus. But damn, dude. You know, do you maybe think that some of these shows are so lackluster? So many of these shows are rinse and repeat and copy and paste because the writing team is just not motivated? You know, sometimes yelling and screaming at people and tearing up their hard work isn't really a good motivator. It's just soul-sucking. It's deflating. It's just like, you know, going to job is a nightmare. Going to your job is miserable. You know, working is not fulfilling at all. Why are you going to, I don't know, stay up all night and work yourself to the bone to try to creatively come up with these great ideas when, you know, Mr. Screwball reads it and says, shit, hell with that. No, let's tear it up and just redo it all. So I think a lot of these writers, we've heard about this. There was one guy that quit WrestleMania weekend, right? Just due to the stress. Road Dogg is no longer in the position that he was in. You know, a lot of guys just cannot take the insanity that goes on. So I don't know if this is a direct result of Vince tearing up these scripts and the head writer is like, well, shit, if you don't like my ideas, what the hell am I doing here? So I'm hoping that some of these cases are maybe of people standing up to Vince. I'm like, dude, fuck off. Stop ripping up my shit. What are you paying me for? What are you hiring me for? To treat me like shit? You know, can't we just work together or whatever? So I don't know if it's directly because of that or if it's because of some of the internal changes. Because don't forget, Heyman and Bischoff have been in their roles now for several weeks. And I don't know if they're even going to make appearances on TV. They're doing that draft in October. We may see them on TV and they might make that part of the storyline as well. But maybe some of these changes are trying to really get the infrastructure down. They're moving SmackDown to Fox. Apparently, these rosters during the draft, which I'll talk about in a minute, are going to be separate, which I'll believe that when I see it. But if that is really going to be the case, and if that is really going to be the plan, maybe they just want to shake things up and get more, I don't know, just firm teams in place. Now, Ed Koskey, who was the head writer of Raw, I believe, is now being moved over to SmackDown. So he'll be working with Bischoff. And I don't know, I guess it's Jonathan Bakestrom is going to be the lead writer for Raw now, working under Paul Heyman. So I don't know much about Jonathan, didn't know much about Ryan Ward, but I know Koskey's been with the company for a couple of decades, or close to it at least. So, yeah, a lot of internal changes. Don't know what the vibe is back there. Don't know what the attitude of, the writers and everything is. But now that if Heyman really is in charge, there are some things creatively that I think we can see differences in. And I'm going to talk about that later on. I think there are a couple of storylines in WWE that maybe are testing our cynicism. I've been getting a lot of comments about people just convinced that Baron Corbin is going to win this King of the Ring. That's what WWE's going to do. They're going to disappoint us. Do you think that's what Heyman would do to us? And on top of that, this King of the Ring has been incredibly unpredictable, which I'll talk about later. So why are we predicting such a predictable finish in a tournament that's been anything but? And I think WWE's testing us to say, hey, watch, you guys all think we're going to do this, but then we're going to surprise you and have King Gable. Just watch. Might happen. I ain't sold on this Corbin idea. No way. He just got his title shot. And a couple of other things too. Bayley and Sasha is another good example, which I'll talk about that later. Would be really nice if they could do something with those two that would stretch out and culminate into some sort of a big match at WrestleMania. But that takes patience, that takes time, that takes forward thinking and planning. And with the complete clusterfuck mess that has been WWE Creative in the past couple of years, I don't think us as fans or anybody really has confidence in WWE to pull off a storyline that lasts that long. It was hard enough for them to do Becky Lynch last year, because by the time she got to WrestleMania, she kind of lost steam. She was doing the dumbass thing where her leg was hurt. She's hobbling around on a crutch. Some of the things that they were doing on their path to WrestleMania was not that great. So with Bischoff and Heyman now in place, especially with Heyman, I trust him. I trust his creative mind a little bit more than Bischoff's. I think I might trust Bischoff's business mind more than Heyman, because Bischoff has always been very smart business-wise and smart with his money and understands things, where Paul Heyman, just lied and scraped by and bounced checks, and all of that. So they are kind of, they're opposites in certain ways, but they're also alike. And I think Paul Heyman, his creative mind, I think is much more comforting for me to know is there than Eric Bischoff. And when it comes to some of these issues that we don't trust WWE to do, I'm hoping that Paul Heyman fixes a lot of these issues. And he hasn't been there very long. It takes time to kind of develop and build your staff and get to know how things work and know people and working with them. You can't just dive into a job and then everything is smooth sailing the very next day. I knew this was going to take weeks, possibly months, to get in place. And according to these reports, things might be coming together backstage. That's good news. And now we're on the doorstep of yet another draft, if these reports are true. Another draft. Why are the fans going to take any of this shit seriously? When they had a draft, then they had a shakeup, then we had the wild card rule. There was only supposed to be 3 people, and then it went to 4, and then it was dropped, and then it was rebrought back, and now there is no limit. It's just all over the place. So if they're going to do another draft, what if they do that draft and then realize they made some sort of a mistake somewhere? If they are going to do a draft, I think part of the reason why the drafts never last is because WWE always paints themselves into a corner. They want to be able to get wrestlers on certain shows and shit like that if the storyline calls for it. And so they just kind of loosely have these rules, and sometimes guys can just show up on SmackDown or show up on Raw, and it's just okay, and they'll make up some bullshit excuse. Oh, the general manager allows them to come for one night, and then the more you do that, the more the rosters just start mishmashing together, and before you know it, the roster split is obsolete. And if they don't want that to happen this time, maybe they should implement some new rules to the draft. Maybe you can get trades throughout the course of 1 year. Maybe there's a trade deadline. Before, how right around All-Star breaks of a lot of sports, you'll have a trade deadline. You can't trade somebody after a certain time to try to, fast track yourself to a championship or anything like that. So maybe there's a trade deadline at the end of the year, just a couple of months before WrestleMania. That way, if they want to set up any WrestleMania match, they can have them on the same brand, something like that, to where you can have Bischoff and Heyman working together in kayfabe if WWE sees the need to move some talent around, instead of just randomly doing it and just announcing it on TV or on social media in some bullshit excuse. General Manager Stephanie or General Manager Heyman or Bischoff or whoever is going to send Roman Reigns to Raw for one night or whatever. So I think if you're going to have separate brands, have separate brands. And if you want to flop some guys, then do trades and allow each brand to do 3 trades a year or 4 trades a year and have a deadline. Make it a little bit fun. Treat it more like a sport. You know, if All Elite Wrestling is, putting the wrestlers' win-loss records on the graphics, why can't WWE treat something like this a little bit more seriously, you know? So I'd like to see something like that coming out of this draft, which apparently is going to be on the October 11th SmackDown from Vegas and the October 14th Raw a couple days later from Denver. So it's going to be Vegas and Denver, and WWE will already have SmackDown on Fox by that point. So they'll start it on SmackDown. Normally they start it on Raw and then it bleeds over into SmackDown. It's going to be reversed this time and go through the weekend. Maybe they can incorporate social media a little bit as well during Saturday and Sunday to get people tuning into Monday's show from Denver. I think this is good news, provided it's true. But so far, in every draft they have ever done, has meant nothing. And hasn't lasted very long. And before you know it, you're just a few months in, and wrestlers are moving around. And this time it would be nice to see them actually do it. Another thing that I think is really important when SmackDown moves to Fox is the sets. Come on, WWE, spend a few bucks. You're getting billions of dollars from these TV networks. Let's go back to having a little bit different of identities on these shows. I know they would never do this, but you know what I would even not be opposed to? Is if WWE had different rings on SmackDown. And I know that's good, that could mess up your talent a little bit, but have more of a WCW or an AEW or an ECW style ring, maybe with the cables and the different turnbuckle pads, just different, maybe even a couple of, I think some rings are 18 by 18, some are 20 by 20 and shit like that, maybe even a different size, but maybe at least get it looking differently. Maybe like an ECW ring, or just change it up, change the complete set, change the complete overall feel of the show so it really does feel like another brand. So far, they've never been able to accomplish that. Back in 2016, they did make the Raw and SmackDown sets slightly different, but really they're both the same. It's just a whole lot of LED screens and shit like that. Bring back the fist going through the glass. Bring back something like that. And then for pay-per-views, same thing. If you just the big 5, at least give us that. I already like that the Royal Rumbles are starting this trend of being in baseball stadiums. I like that. I hope they continue that. So those sets are a little bit unique. WrestleMania, of course, is unique. And if they can continue that for at least the big 5, Money in the Bank, Mania, Rumble, SummerSlam, and Survivor Series, and give us some unique sets, at least that's something. Bring back a tiny bit of pyro. Doesn't have to be every week, but maybe 4 pay-per-views at least. And also, I've pitched the idea of completely revamping the entire pay-per-view calendar for WWE and maybe only doing 10 a year instead of 12, but again, wishful thinking, that'll never happen. But whatever these changes are that are going to be taking place with Vince aging, the XFL about to launch, SmackDown moving to a network that is not going to play any games with them and is going to demand some quality content here, I'm really hoping that WWE realizes that they gotta run with the ball here and they better not fuck this up. So maybe that's what we're seeing here in a lot of these behind-the-scenes reports. We'll have to see. I'm gonna pause there and go back over here to the chat and see if there's anything else I need to talk about, because the next one is kind of long. We've got this Ric Flair fiasco to talk about. I want to make sure I'm still up and running and everybody's in here having a good time, playing nicely together. Oh, good, you guys are playing catch. You guys are trading baseball cards. Cool. All right, everybody's getting along and singing Kumbaya. Let's hope that continues as we get into some of these subjects here. And the next one is kind of weird. Old Nature Boy. The man who stole someone else's gimmick is trying to trademark Becky Lynch's catchphrase. Okay, so Ric Flair, big news last couple of days. He is attempting to trademark the catchphrase, the man, which Becky Lynch, of course, is using. It's on her t-shirts. She's been referring to herself as that for the past year or so, and it's been a big deal. And apparently, Ric Flair thinks that he's owed all of this money in royalties for the use of his catchphrase, that he called himself the man, and he apparently has filed for this trademark, and he wants to receive royalties for Becky's use of this phrase. And I think this is fucked up. But before I give you my opinions on it, I want to read you this interview that Ric Flair did with TMZ, and shout out to Jeremy Lambert of Fightful for posting this transcript. But he did an interview with TMZ, and he would say, I quote, this is coming from Ric Flair, this is what he says. When I first saw Becky Lynch become the man in August of 2018, I thought, cool, the man, my gimmick versus my daughter, Charlotte. I said, I'm going to make some money. It's my trademark. I've been saying it since 1981. I got my royalty statement, and their lawyer, who has had no respect for me whatsoever, said, you're wrong, it's not even close. I sent him a text, and he didn't respond. I had my lawyer call him, and he blew off my lawyer. This is all in January of 2019 of this year. I told Triple H, I'm going to file. The reason they don't have the trademark for Becky is because it's too close to mine. I already have to be the man trademarked. So he already has to be the man trademarked, okay? Flair then continued to say, I love Becky Lynch. No one has supported the women's division more than me. I don't know what WWE spin has been to Becky. My daughter is so mad at me because I filed for the trademark, not even understanding it's not with Becky. I have no beef with Becky. Here's the deal. When I almost died 2 years ago, one person stayed by me the whole time, and I'm going to take care of my wife and her family and my family that is taking care of me no matter what. I don't care what the WWE thinks of me personally. I know they love me, but obviously they've lost respect for me. Win or lose, Becky can have the trademark all day long. I want the company to pay me for it. I'm gonna be the man. If I don't get the trademark, you know what my tombstone will say. He died trying to be the man. Yeah, I don't know if I really agree with him here. Now, here's the thing. Now, legally, because of everybody being so copyright happy here, Ric Flair may have claim to this, and the court may, they may decide in his favor. I'm not going to lie, but I just kind of think it's a dick move. Now, on one hand, part of me loves it that this is happening to WWE, because how many times do they copyright fuck with people constantly? Cease and desists fly out that company's ass like diarrhea. So the fact that somebody is now kind of putting a speed bump in front of them, I'm never going to have any sympathy for those assholes in WWE. Hell, they've even taken down videos of mine that have been so good and innocent and actually probably serve as advertisements for WWE, encouraging people to buy the network. And they fuck with me on dumb copyright shit. I'll put 9 seconds of video footage in for a reference, and they take the whole 2-hour commentary down. It's effed up. So the fact that somebody's doing this to WWE, great. I love it. But I hope that it might be taking money out of Becky Lynch's pocket. If she sells a bunch of those man t-shirts, she gets a cut of that merchandise. But if Ric Flair gets to take some of that from her, I don't know if he takes her cut or WWE's cut. I don't know how that works, but it's really affecting Becky too. And as far as Ric Flair's reasons here, he says he wants to make sure he takes care of his family when he's dead, to make sure there's money coming in. Motherfucker, maybe you shouldn't have been flying around in limousine or flying around in Lear jets and driving around in limousines and living such a bougie lifestyle and saved your money. You should have more than enough money for yourself and your family to live for many, many years. You are a household name. Money is still rolling in to this day, but he's never been good with money. We've heard reports of Flair being broke a time or two. That's probably why he went to sign with TNA back in 2010 after he retired. So Ric Flair has never been really that smart financially, and he may have every right in the world to do what he is doing, but don't you just think it's a dick move? WWE, I feel, has been incredibly patient with Ric Flair. They've been kind to him, generous, understanding. I don't think WWE or Triple H specifically would ever let anything happen to Ric Flair. They love him. He's a statue Mount Rushmore guy. Nobody is going to let Ric Flair's family starve. And I don't know what it is about people. I think sometimes greed can take them over. Ric Flair should not be thinking about money. He should be thinking about God, because he's going to meet him soon, So I don't understand why he would make such a stink about this instead of maybe trying to work something out instead, or maybe just saying to himself, is this a battle I really want to fight? Is it going to be worth it? What are these royalties really going to bring into him? And he, like I said, he may very well be entitled these. It's a dick move. And I would think if I was Ric Flair and somebody that made millions upon millions of dollars, I wouldn't try to take anything away from Becky Lynch. And he can say he has no problem with her. I'm sure he doesn't. I'm sure he loves her to death. But he's still trying to get a cash grab on something that she's been building. And I don't think anybody has necessarily just referred to Ric Flair as the man, only Ric Flair. When Goldberg used to come out on WCW, Bobby Heenan, every week, the man, or maybe he said duh man. But he referred to Goldberg as that every single week on TV. Ric Flair stole his Nature Boy gimmick from somebody else. I'm just amazed that Ric Flair just thinks he has this much of a claim to it. And I may be proven wrong. He may go to court, take WWE to court and win and get a bunch of money for this. Good on him. But damn, with all of the money that he's already made in the business, with Charlotte swimming in money, I don't know how this family could possibly need any more. But when you're an idiot financially, I guess that's what happens. And because Ric Flair decided to fly around in private jets, that's going to result in Becky Lynch making less money. Just doesn't seem fair to me. But that's just one person's opinion. Some of you might be completely behind Ric Flair and say he has every legal right to do this. And you know what? I'm not going to argue with you because you're not wrong. To me, it's just more of a principle, and that's not what business is about. Business isn't about being nice. Doesn't matter if WWE has treated Ric Flair well. If he's legally obligated or if he has legal rights to this money and this claim, then he should take WWE on. But I just think it makes a really awkward situation for his daughter. A lot of people say, a lot of the cynical fans, they complain that, the only reason Charlotte gets anywhere is because of her dad. That's the only reason. Forget the fact that she's a hell of a worker and talented as fuck and took to wrestling like Kurt Angle did. And she's probably going to go on to be the greatest women's wrestler the business has ever seen. They think it's only because of Ric Flair. Well, if that's the case, then Ric Flair pissing off the WWE should result in the de-push of Charlotte by that logic, should it not? If somebody pisses him off, WWE, they do have the ability to be petty. We've seen that I don't know how many times. WWE's extremely petty. So if they're mad enough at Ric Flair, maybe punishing the daughter is a good way to stick it back to him. Say, fine, old man, you want to play? Let's just job out Charlotte for a while. But I don't think WWE's going to do that. Charlotte is too good to do that to. And you'd be doing a disservice to your women's division if you bury your top talent just because you're mad at her dad. But that's not something that stopped WWE in the past. So hopefully guys like Paul Heyman and Eric Bischoff will be the voice of reason there. But yeah, what do you guys think about the Flair situation? Do you think he's right? Do you think he's wrong? Are you indifferent on it? Do you think that, yes, he has a legal right to the money or to the claim, but at the same time, you wish he wouldn't do it kind of thing? They put up with him when he went to TNA. He unretired. WWE gave him that beautiful send-off with Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels put his body and life on the line to give him the match of a lifetime at WrestleMania. They did the rings, the watches, the send-off that made grown men like myself cry like a little 3-year-old bitch. And then he does that to them. And what'd they do? Welcome them back with open arms. You're always welcome here, Rick, no matter what you do. We love you. And this is how he pays them? Just not cool. Let me go over here to the chat and see if we got any super chats to catch up on. We probably do. Oh, how easy. Look at that. You missed my super chat and somebody else's. Well, that's what I'm here to do. I wasn't looking at the chat. I had to come back to it. All right, I see Spectra's. I answered that. Who's next? How easy. Good to see you in here. Shout out to you for being awesome. Thanks for being the mod this evening. And thank you for the $5. Going to be interesting to see what WWE does with the 24/7 belt at WrestleMania 36. How easy? Are you going? Because there is an outside chance I'm going. It might be a busy year for me. I might be able to manage the Jericho Cruise and WrestleMania. It's just in the talking phases right now. But if I go, you want to meet up, man? But yeah, I'm assuming the 24/7 belt will last that long. That's a long time from now. They're going to have to do a lot of crazy shit between now and then. And by the time they get to WrestleMania next year, we might be running out of ideas because I'll be talking about the 24/7 belt later on. And Grand Metalik riding in on the old cart. That was hilarious. But yeah, we'll see if that... how crazy would it be if the 24/7 belt main events WrestleMania 36? R-Truth wins the 24/7 title in the main event. Andrew Pike, good to see you back in here, man. Thank you so much for another super chat. You're always generous. I'm surprised you didn't make a I'm going to trademark this bald man joke, but what Ric Flair is doing is silly. Yeah, you kind of agree. And I think a lot of people are mostly in agreement. There's a few people, when I put some opinions on this on Twitter, that did kind of defend him a little bit. And I understand, like, I'm not even saying you're necessarily wrong, because if Ric Flair takes this to court and wins, then why are we mad at him? He had every right to do this, but it's that dick move thing I'm talking about. Just doesn't seem cool. And it just seems like, I don't know, just pick your battles, dude. If you need some money, just call Triple H. Dude, can I have $100,000? Triple H is like, yeah, all 20's okay. Here you go. I just wish it would be easier like that. If I was just like crazy rich and one of my other crazy rich friends like needed some money, what's $100,000 between rich friends, Like, what's the big deal? So I don't know. It's just something that going to court and going through all that legal bullshit, when you're so old, I don't know. By the way, I meant to mention that in the intro here. Positive vibes, good thoughts, and everything to those in the path of Dorian. Dorian is knocking on the doorstep right now of my hometown and my home state of North Carolina, and I've been really bad about keeping up with the news. I saw that it decimated the Bahamas and has been, hanging out in the Atlantic, but I've been busy and only been getting updates like every couple of days. I peeked at it today and saw how close it was, freaked me out a little bit, made a couple of phone calls to some friends who have evacuated, left the beach and head inland to Winston-Salem and other places like that. So if you're in Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina, and then the path of this thing, please be safe, please be careful. I've been in your shoes. I've been through many hurricanes before, and I know how gnarly they can be. So good luck and be safe, please. Marcus Metcalf, thanks for the $2, dude. I appreciate it. What would Austin say about KO 316 shirts? Well, that's something that he might have a right to. That's kind of different. The man seems a little bit. I don't associate the man with Ric Flair. When it comes to 316 being on a wrestling shirt, there's only one person, Austin. So, and plus, if they did that, Austin might come after his money too, and that would be a whole different thing to comment on whether or not Austin should do it. I'm not really comparing the Ric Flair thing to others. Well, what about this guy? What about that guy? Like I said, Ric Flair might win. Zane, also, thank you, brother, for the $1. I appreciate you popping in with your support as always. Marcus and Zane, y'all are awesome. Did I miss anybody else? Andrew, I got you. All right, let's go back to the news here. What does that leave me with here? I've talked about Ric Flair. We've talked about the draft. We've talked about the creative changes to WWE and the entire Chris Jericho belt fiasco. My God. Why don't we move into Raw and Smackdown now? Raw this week was kind of a good show, but kind of a weird one too. They were advertising the big contract signing between Seth Rollins and Braun Strowman. They, of course, are both doing double duty. At Clash of Champions, they've got to defend their Raw tags first against Rude and Ziggler, and then they have to face each other for the Universal title later on. They attempted to open up Raw with a big contract signing there. Michael Cole was in the ring, being a moderator, and Strowman and Seth, they exchanged some words on the mic, and then Seth goes to sign the contract, and the OC interrupts. AJ Styles gets on the mic. He's pleading the cases of the OC that they should be facing Rollins and Strowman for the title for the tag titles because, Rude and Ziggler aren't even a real team and blah, blah, blah. And he's talking so much shit, and in an absolute great spot, they all start brawling with each other, but right before they do, Braun Strowman picks up that table that they were using for the contract signing and just throws it right into AJ's face. And to watch his head bounce back and his soccer mom hair fly back was hysterical. And then all 5 men start brawling. We go to commercial, come back, of course. Naturally, we've got a impromptu tag match between Rollins and Strowman against the club. Against Gallows and Anderson. And Seth and Braun win that match pretty easily. I think Rollins rolls up Anderson for the win or something like that. They did the spot after the match. After Rollins and Strowman beat Gallows and Anderson, they did the spot that I predicted. I told you guys we are going to have some miscommunication. Something's going to go down between Seth and Strowman because this is the same scenario we see every single time baby faces have a title match together. They're always teamed up. Most cases, in a lot of cases anyway, they win the tag team titles like every time. So we've seen this thing like 24 times already. And so what's going to happen? You're going to have a match and there's going to be a miscommunication. One guy's going to hit the other. And I said last week that what's probably going to happen is Strowman is going to be doing his laps around the ring and he's going to plow into Seth by mistake. That's exactly what happened after the match was over. He ran down Seth Rollins. That also prompted Rude and Ziggler to hit the ring. So with Seth taken out, it's now 5-on-1. The entire OC and Rude and Ziggler all destroying Braun Strowman. And for a split second during the live stream, I was like, are they going to join the OC? Like, why not? Throw Ziggler and Rude into the OC, and I thought they were all going to throw up the symbol with AJ in the club. But they didn't. It was just a 5-man beatdown of poor old Braun Strowman, and later on, it was announced, because all hell broke loose in this contract signing, that next week on Raw, live from Madison Square Garden, they're going to do the contract signing again, but instead of Michael Cole's worthless ass being out there trying to moderate it, they're going to have my dad, Stone Cold Steve Austin, coming out to be the moderator of this thing in Madison Square Garden. That should be fun. Now, Austin, did that Skype interview on Raw a couple of weeks ago after SummerSlam when Seth won the title, putting over Seth huge. So he's already got a little bit of kind of history there with Seth backstage. Strowman actually took issue to this and said, oh, what, you're going to get your friend to be the moderator or whatever. So I don't know why Strowman gives a shit at all who moderates the contract signing. His character shouldn't care if RoboCop is moderating this thing. So he kind of has a problem with that. And there's all sorts of speculation now of what you can do with Steve when he's in the Garden next week, because as we'll talk about here in a minute, in the Firefly Funhouse segment, they acknowledged and they basically, WWE confirmed that the report that the arena in Sacramento advertised with The Fiend challenging the winner of Strowman and Seth for the Universal title at Hell in a Cell is apparently true. And you've got Austin in there moderating these two. And I mentioned a couple of weeks ago when Austin was announced for the MSG show, because we knew he was going to be there, but we didn't know he was going to be doing this. So when he was initially announced for the Garden show, I said on Twitter, and I think in one of the live streams, that The Fiend should attack him. And a lot of people are like, oh no, Austin will never go for that. He'll never get beat up by The Fiend like all those other weak legends. Well, what if you just meet him halfway? What if the lights go out and, I don't know, Seth and Strowman are in there too, and somehow Bray just gets his hands on Austin, or maybe Austin starts fighting off Bray Wyatt a little bit, hits him with a couple of punches first before Bray sinks in the mandible claw. Something like that might be fun. And he gets Austin. And now, you know, the evidence of that is even stronger because Austin's going to be the moderator for the Universal title match, and The Fiend is rumored to get a title match at Hell in the Cell, facing the winner here. So it would be cool, and plus the setting that they're in, don't forget, it's the Garden. You know, if they were in deer shit, Alabama, I wouldn't care if The Fiend came out and attacked Austin or not, but they're in the Garden. The same place where Austin stunned McMahon. You know, maybe he can have an epic moment being on the receiving end of something like that, and another way to build Bray Wyatt. You know, on his path of beating regular stars, he's also putting down legends at the same time. The Undertaker apparently is going to be on Smackdown the next night. So if Bray doesn't get Austin, he might get Undertaker. He might get both. He might get neither. But how can you have Austin out there on Monday and and Taker out there on Tuesday and not have Bray Wyatt attack one of these bastards? He has to. He absolutely has to. I insist, WWE. So that's kind of interesting, and I think it sets up a potentially really fun Monday Night Raw next week. I'm looking forward to it. Plus, we got awesome King of the Ring stuff happening and all of that. And speaking of that, well, first I want to talk about the Firefly Funhouse. They did another Funhouse segment on Raw, which was really good, and that's where they acknowledged Bray Wyatt getting the title shot at Hell in the Cell. It does look like that's going to happen because they had the crazy Devil Vince puppet come up, mentioning that he's going to challenge for the Universal title, and then Bray Wyatt goes on to allude to, in another life, Seth Rollins and Strowman took something from him and kind of gave a little wink or something like that. And he wound up getting the Vince Devil doll out of there by feeding him $100 bills until he was full and went away. Nice little touch having the rabbit come up with the sign, with the help sign, and Bray just kind of casually pushes him down. One of my favorite Funhouse segments that they've done so far. It was simple, 3 minutes long, but fun, and I enjoyed it. And I'm really excited for what they could do with him. And I mentioned in the podcast last week that I'm of the opinion, I'm in the camp of, if you're going to do it with Bray Wyatt, pull the trigger right now. So I don't know at Clash of the Champions if you get Seth Rollins beating Strowman and then going into Hell in the Cell. I don't even know if it's going to be a Hell in the Cell match. Probably not. They might save the cell for Kofi and Orton. It might just be a straight-up match. And maybe Bray Wyatt puts down Seth Rollins and wins the title. Maybe it's a triple threat. Maybe we get some sort of a weird finish in the title match. Because don't forget, we got title matches out the ass at the Clash. You could probably afford to do a schmaz in one of these matches. Especially if you do a title change with Randy Orton and Kofi, which I think might happen. I think you'll do the Kofi Orton title change and then the blow off in the cell with Randy Orton retaining and moving on. So that means you can maybe afford to do something a little silly, having Seth and Strowman retain against Roode and Ziggler, and then maybe in the main event there's a bunch of interference. You got AJ floating around, you got the OC floating around, and you've got the Fiend that could make an appearance. Maybe there's just a bunch of interference. It's a DQ, double count out, no contest, whatever, and then you do a triple threat at Hell in the Cell between Bray, Strowman, and Seth, and have Bray Wyatt go over there, beating both of them. Instead of beating one major babyface, you beat two. Maybe it could be a way to just get him over even stronger. And if he puts down Austin or Taker or both on his road to that, it's looking pretty good for the Fiend. But all of that has to happen first. What do you guys think about all that? How would you do it? The King of the Ring. I want to talk about that as well. Let me take a sip of water and go back to the chat before we get into the King of the Ring, because I got opinions on that too. And I definitely have some super chats to answer, it looks like. The first one is from Dominique Richardson. Thank you, brother, for the $2. I appreciate it. Good to see you in here. Do you think Shamrock will be in the Hall of Fame? He's one of the, I feel like there's so few guys that you can debate if they belong or not. For me, basically, if you had any sort of name in the business, you belong in there. When you see who's currently in there, it's the Coco Beware rule is what I call it. So Shamrock, former Intercontinental Champion, had some big moments in WWE, even had some world title shots, but was only in the company for 2 years. He went to TNA, won the belt there, came in and out of pro wrestling a couple of times. So based on that, yeah, he's Hall of Fame worthy, I suppose, but just barely. I really wish Kenny would have stuck around because I liked him. I thought he was awesome, had a great look. And if he could have stayed with WWE all that time and embraced it and loved wrestling, you could have set up for him to pass the torch to Brock a few years later. Would have been awesome. Or Angle. Those matches would have been great. But yeah, I think Shamrock is a Hall of Famer, I suppose. But his run in WWE was just so ridiculously short. And we've got some comments, too, about... I didn't mention that earlier about the Seth Rollins and Braun Strowman stuff. There is the possibility of Seth Rollins going heel. Maybe turning on Braun Strowman. But I don't know if you're going to do that right now if you've got the Fiend waiting in the wings. I think Bray Wyatt needs to put down a babyface instead of going into a heel versus heel match or something like that. And if you turn Seth Rollins heel and he's got all this newfound heel heat, having him lose to Bray Wyatt is just weird. So I don't know if I'd do a Seth Rollins heel turn right this minute, but I definitely want him to turn at some point. And I may even be with you on this and say that he would turn at the Clash had it not been for these Fiend rumors. But that makes me think WWE's going in a completely different direction. Now I want to talk about the King of the Ring. Drinking my non-alcoholic and non-bubbly water. It's delicious. Ralph's Purified Drinking Water. Highly recommend it. Anyway, the King of the Ring tournament, I think, has been fantastic. I've been really enjoying this tournament. One major reason, and that is the unpredictability of it. And on Monday Night Raw, we had a couple of really good matches. Baron Corbin took on Cedric Alexander first. Now, Cedric was not 100%. Backstage, he was jumped. He was jumped by the OC. Beat up by AJ Styles. And then he had to go into his match with Baron Corbin not 100%. And he put up a hell of a fight, despite the fact in storyline that his character got completely annihilated backstage. He took Baron Corbin to the limit. You would think it would be easy pickings for Baron Corbin. But after a great match, Corbin does eventually win with the End of Days in a match that I thought was really good. And I thought it set up a great story for Cedric. And let me tell you, man, we might get a Cedric Alexander and AJ Styles U.S. title match. I'd be into that. I'd be totally into that. AJ Styles is 42 years old. He's got a championship around his waist right now. WWE, it seems like they're trying to take the small little chunk of cruiserweight 205 Live guys and make something of them. So far, they're paying very close attention to Cedric and Ali and Buddy Murphy. Those are the three that they really seem to trying to be moving up a few rungs on the ladder. So I think AJ would be better served at this point, maybe working a little program with Cedric and putting him over and having Cedric run with the U.S. title. Because now not only is Cedric a U.S. champion for the first time, but he has beaten a quality opponent for it. Not in some random match. He beat AJ fucking Styles. So that could be fun. And I think it would be a lot better than Cedric winning the King of the Ring. So I said on Monday during the stream when I was watching this, I said I'm actually rooting for Baron Corbin in this situation because AJ attacked Cedric. Wouldn't make sense for Cedric to win now and go on to King of the Ring. Seems like he's starting something with AJ. So have Corbin win here. He beats a lesser, weaker opponent, adding to his heel heat. He's being able to coast through into the finals. It's all perfect. So I was actually in that match rooting for Baron Corbin because I had a pretty good feeling he would win, and it's actually the outcome I wanted. And I can't believe I'm saying that. And I think everybody, mark my words, in 6 months, I think people are already going to start to do it. But people are going to lighten their stance on Baron Corbin. I think he's been slowly transitioning his go-away heat into real heel heat because he's been sitting in the throne. He's been cutting promos after his matches. We got a little break from him. He was off TV for a little while after the Extreme Rules match. And like I said earlier, when I alluded to WWE maybe testing the fans' cynicism, testing our cynicism, I can't tell you how many tweets I get every day or anytime I mention the King of the Ring tournament. People are saying, oh, we know what they're going to do. They're just going to give it to Corbin. We're going to have that King Corbin, and it's going to suck and all this. And you might be right. They very well may do that. When we first saw the brackets, Corbin was on a lot of our lists. But I had a big list of guys, too. I had Drew McIntyre. I had Kevin Owens. I had Andrade. All as the favorites. They're all out. All of them. We've had some crazy surprises. And what's awesome about this King of the Ring is that not one single match has really been that predictable. And I know Sheamus and Barrett sucked. I know those two King of the Ring tournaments were awful, but you can't change that. You can't go back in time and make those not awful. All you can do is try to do better. And this one is better. This has been a great tournament so far. Everybody misses the way it used to be on pay-per-view. I had somebody on Twitter saying, it's not a real King of the Ring. It's not on pay-per-view. Well, the King of the Ring pay-per-view was originally on TV and on videotapes, and they weren't on pay-per-views. Then they went to pay-per-view for a few years. They disappeared, and now WWE has resurrected them every few years and on TV. It's just what they do now. Changing the format doesn't change the name. It's still the King of the Ring, just presented differently. And the last couple of winners haven't been that great, but this tournament, I think, has by far exceeded those two, especially with the wrestling. We got Buddy Murphy and Ali and Cedric and Corbin. We had some great matches in this. Drew McIntyre and Ricochet. And we're going to have some great matches to finish this one out. We had Gable and Andrade on SmackDown, which I'll talk about in a little bit. Elias had the best match of his career last Tuesday in a King of the Ring match. And none of these matches have been predictable. And all of our brackets are busted. Who the fuck had these guys in the semifinals, you know? Who wrote in these exact results? Nobody. They've completely caught us off guard. They've kept us off guard and off balance, and we have no idea who's going to win. So in a tournament that's been so ridiculously unpredictable, I'm surprised so many fans are convinced that it's going to be a predictable outcome because they've proved that this tournament is anything but predictable. So I am going to suspend my criticism. And like I said earlier, or my cynicism, excuse me, like I said earlier about Paul Heyman being in charge, one of the things that I was hoping as a wrestling fan is that ideas like this, putting the crown on Baron Corbin, which we don't want to see, Paul Heyman might be the voice of reason and say, okay, well, let's not do that, or let's do somebody else. And another reason why I'm not sold on this Corbin's automatically going to win idea is that he already had his title shots. He was Seth's first challenger, right? Or second challenger. He had the shot at Extreme Rules, and he was heavily involved in the Universal title situation right after WrestleMania. And whoever, you would think, whoever wins the King of the Ring here is going to propel them into some sort of a future title shot or program or elevate them in some way. Baron Corbin has already had that. He's already been elevated to world title shot contention before. You don't need to re-elevate him again. He hasn't fallen too far down the ladder, I don't feel, to have to be re-elevated or be built back up. So he's a guy that when you really look at who's left, doesn't even need this. So I think WWE is going to be smarter, and I think they're going to surprise a lot of people. Now, I might be proved wrong. You might be insisting that they're going to disappoint us and give us Corbin and Baron Corbin just to piss us off. Maybe they will. But my instinct tells me they're not. And my instinct tells me we might get a King Gable or a King Ricochet or something like that. And that might be fun. I think that would be more fun than doing Baron Corbin. And I think WWE might know that too, because all of our favorites are gone. They're gone from the tournament. So now it's almost like, aside from Baron Corbin, you have no choice but to make the winner here, you know, elevate their status on the roster. So I'm not sold on this Corbin idea, and we'll see what happens. But the other King of the Ring match that took place on Monday Night Raw was weird. They did all sorts of weird shit here. This is going to be a first for the King of the Ring, I believe. It was Ricochet and Samoa Joe. The match ended in a no contest when both men's shoulders were down and the referee counted 1, 2, 3. All 4 shoulders were down. Nobody knew what to do. And in typical WWE fashion, they never know a procedure for this. This imaginary kayfabe rule book, there's no procedure in there for when shit goes down. They just decide this on the fly for whatever, storyline purposes they have. So all 4 men's shoulders are down. In most cases when this happens, you restart the match. The authority figure comes out and restarts the match. Sometimes you don't know who wins and it's a draw. Sometimes you have co-champions. Well, this time, the referee just doesn't know what to do and leaves. Corey Graves goes to find him, goes backstage to find the referee and say, okay, what's the call on this? Who won this match? What is the official decision? Baron Corbin shows up with a shit-eating grin on his face and thinks that he has a bye and he's just going to waltz his dumbass into the semifinals without having to do anything. But that's not the case, the referee said, and he talked to WWE management, and they've decided that next week it's going to be a triple threat. Joe and Ricochet will technically both advance to face Corbin in a triple threat, and the winner of that will go on to the finals. So that's a first. Not only are we getting unpredictable matches and unpredictable finishes, WWE's throwing a triple threat match at us in the King of the Ring. I'm no historian, but I don't remember a triple threat match happening in King of the Ring. Unless it happened 5 years ago and I'm stupid. But that's kind of unique, not something I'm necessarily against, and it gives them a big match now for next week, and maybe a really fun match for Ricochet to come out on top of, if he can get past these 2 giant heels and somehow win that match. But we also saw a small interaction with Chad Gable and Samoa Joe on Smackdown. So that might be some foreshadowing there, and maybe Samoa Joe comes out of the triple threat next week to go in the finals against Chad Gable. So that's kind of where we are on the Raw side of things for the King of the Ring, and we'll talk about SmackDown in a minute. As far as what else we saw on Raw, we had a couple of singles matches. We had Lacey defeating Natalya. We had The Miz defeating Cesaro. The War Raiders ate a couple of jobbers, and we had another emotional backstage promo with Rey Mysterio. Still don't know where this is completely going to lead. I'm assuming it's going to be a tag match with his son. Rey's doing good promo work in all of this. It's just not a storyline that I'm that interested in. But I think Rey's been doing really good and convincing promo work. Dominic, not so much, but Rey is doing well. I don't know. I'm not into it, really. Maybe that'll change whenever we see where this is going to go, and if there's going to be any sort of crazy swerves here, if Dominic is going to turn or anything like that, that might spark my interest a little bit more. But right now, I don't care too much about it. Sorry to say. Main event of Monday Night Raw was coined the Championships Showcase. It was going to be Becky Lynch and Bayley, your SmackDown and Raw women's champions, taking on Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross, the women's tag team champions. So you had a whole lot of belts here. Nothing was on the line. They do the match near the end. Sasha Banks, who's standing out on the ramp during the whole thing, she just gets in the ring, grabs Becky from behind and hits her with a backstabber. The referee calls for the bell, and Sasha starts just wailing away on Becky Lynch with a chair. And the referee's calling for the bell. Finally, Bayley enters the ring and grabs the chair out of Sasha's hand. And the two of them look at each other, and Bayley kind of looks back over at Sasha and gives a little smile, and then bam, wails away on Becky with the chair. We got the Bayley heel turn, at least so we thought. I was marking out during the live stream. I'm like, yes, finally. Because they kept talking to Sasha Banks backstage and Bayley backstage, asking them how they feel about each other, what their relationship is like, what Bayley feels about what Sasha has been doing, and this feud with Becky Lynch, and now Bayley has to team with her. So they're definitely making it known that Bayley and Sasha are not done with their story. And with the heel turn here of Bayley, which I've been waiting for forever, I've taken it like 10 steps farther. Pitching Bayley heel turns in the past, I've said, oh man, she should go full goth. She should go emo, dye her hair black makeup, black lipstick, dress like a slut, wear leather, things like that, and just be a badass. Turn her into Sensational Sherry or something like that. But they didn't go that far, it looks like. But she is going to remain at the side of Sasha Banks. And I talked about this earlier, that whatever they're doing here with the two of them, I think should have some sort of a culmination at WrestleMania. Obviously a match between the two of them, but how the relationship progresses. Maybe they get these tag team title belts back. You also have Survivor Series on the horizon where you're going to have a champion versus champion match. Bayley and Sasha could potentially both be women's champions going into that match, which is going to force them to have to face each other. They might make up for themselves losing the tag team titles at WrestleMania, and at some point, you've got Bayley as SmackDown champion, Sasha as Raw champion, and then the two of them together team up to also win the tag team titles. You talk about making up for everything with their temper tantrums, laying on the floor and screaming, or whatever they were doing at WrestleMania, and now they've come full circle. Not only have they won their tag team titles belts back, but they're both world champions on top of it. They're on top of the entire women's wrestling world. They could be going somewhere like that, and then maybe eventually you do a split. You have Sasha turn on Bayley, and then you do the big WrestleMania match for the title in a marquee match on the show or something like that. Don't know what Becky and Charlotte are going to do in this either, if they're going to get involved, because these are all of the horsewomen, don't forget. So maybe all four of them are fighting with each other for months and months before Ronda Rousey comes back with her friends. And then you got that big 4-on-4 feud that we've been waiting for. I think the future is potentially bright for this whole thing, but can also be easily ruined and flushed down the shitter at the same time. So we'll have to see. But I'm really happy, at least for now, with the Bayley heel turn. I think it's long overdue. I think WWE should give her a chance to do it, because she was somebody as a babyface that just doesn't get a lot of reaction from the crowd. Nothing near what she got in NXT. That she has that elaborate entrance that I hate with the big inflatable things, and the crowd just is twiddling their thumbs when she comes out. So she's been in major need of a change, and I don't know what this is going to mean for Charlotte now, because I think the minute she swung that chair on Raw, that might have essentially turned Charlotte babyface, and we would see that on SmackDown. Good segue, actually. Before we run into SmackDown, let me peek back over to the chat and see if I missed anything. I did not. All right, the audience is creeping up in here, too. We got over 100 people in here now. If you would do me a favor and smash that thumbs up button, I would really appreciate it. If you're watching this or doing any sort of social media stuff, make sure you hashtag Winged Eagle Podcast, and make sure you subscribe to the channel as well. And if you could do all those little things for me, those chores, I would appreciate it. Sorry to have to give you chores during my podcast, but it's how we keep the channel growing. It's got to be done. But anyway, like I said, moving on to SmackDown now. Bayley would open the show, and she would basically explain herself as to why she did what she did the night before on Raw. Now, she also came out to the same theme music. I mentioned in the Raw stream that I thought that she was going to have to, just by default, change up things a little bit. Can she really come out there with that bippity-boppity Bayley music and do the shit that she does as a heel? But she did, complete with inflatable things and everything. Came right out there. She didn't really go over to the crowd and give them any hugs, but she still kind of had the same look and all of that. She gets on the mic and basically, I don't know if she was saying in so many words that she's not a heel, but she's claiming to try to still be that role model. So I think she's going to be one of those like delusional people that thinks she's a hero, and she'll cheat to win and do whatever she can to win and get ahead. But at the same time, think that she's teaching the young fans the right way to do things. And she explained on the mic that she's trying to be a role model and teach loyalty, because Sasha is her best friend, and best friends don't turn their backs on each other. And she was going to be there for her no matter what. And that's when Charlotte came out. Charlotte came out there, got on the mic, and called Bayley selfish. And then Sasha Banks came out, and the three of them started brawling, and Sasha and Bayley overtook Charlotte. A lot of fans thought Becky Lynch was going to come out and make the save, but she didn't. I kind of like that she didn't, because Becky Lynch's character, this stone-cold character that wanted nothing of Natalia's good sportsmanship, that Becky really shouldn't come out there. She should have no care in the world that Charlotte's getting her ass beat at all, because Becky Lynch's character doesn't give a shit about Charlotte. So I didn't mind Becky not coming out there, and I liked that they basically did a repeat of the night before, but this time it was Bayley handing the chair to Sasha, and Sasha wailed away on Charlotte with it. So that was good stuff. I don't know where it's leading, but like I said, when you factor in all the different possibilities, the possibility that Sasha and Bayley could both be champions, the tag team title belts could get reintroduced here some way. You've got Survivor Series to think about, where you are going to have a champion versus champion match. That could go a lot of different ways. It could pit Bayley and Sasha together against each other early instead of waiting for Mania. Or you can have Charlotte win the belt from Bayley, Sasha win the belt from Becky, and you've got Sasha and Charlotte again with Bayley and Becky involved somewhere. There's lots of different ways it could go, but I think Survivor Series could be interesting depending on who walks out of the Clash as champion. Back to the King of the Ring. I want to talk about that some more because we had a couple of really good matches on SmackDown as well. See, most weeks, most of these matches have been good. Most all of them have been good. The first one, I argue, was Elias's best match he's ever had on TV. He took on Ali in a really good match. I liked a lot of the spots in this match, particularly one where Ali did the 450 splash onto Elias's arm, which just looked amazing. And props to Ali for just giving a good match to Elias here, because so many of Elias's matches, I complained about this when he first got to the main roster, that he didn't have any sort of real storylines or real directions or feuds with anybody. They would be short feuds. They would last a few weeks and he would move on. And he was doing this with everybody on the roster, the Lashley and Strowman and Balor and countless others. And it never felt special. It never felt like anything that he did meant anything, because all he does is come out there, play on the guitar, somebody interrupts him, leads to a match, rinse and repeat every week, right? So this was a nice breath of fresh air to see Elias have this awesome match with Ali. And the finish saw Ali missing the 450 finisher. Lands hard, and Elias is able to grab him, hit him with the drift away for the win. And Elias moves on. I had Elias losing in the first round. And here he is, going into the semifinals to take on Chad Gable. And when I was watching SmackDown, I was actually home on Tuesday. When Elias won, I was thinking to myself, I don't know if an Elias and an Andrade match makes sense. I kind of started thinking that Gable was either going to, number one, beat Andrade, or they were going to do a schmozz finish like they did on Raw and give us a triple threat on the other side. So you got a triple threat on the Raw side and a triple threat on the SmackDown side, with the winners facing a King of the Ring. I thought they might go in that direction, but Chad Gable, number one, has a great match with Andrade and then beats him in the upset. Does this really sweet counter to the hammerlock DDT, rolled him over into a sunset flip and got the quick pin, surprising Andrade. And Gable, we've been hearing rumblings of maybe WWE doing things with him or doing something new with him. We've heard about the trademark for Shorty G. Don't know if that has anything to do with Gable. Likely it does, given all the short jokes they're making about him. The dude's 5'8". I don't know why they're making that many short jokes. I mean, 5'8" is short, but it's not tiny. You know, it ain't 5'4" or 5'5". That's what they're making it sound like. But he now goes into the semifinals next week from Madison Square Garden to take on Elias. And when I look at the final four, or the final five actually, you got Corbin, Joe, and Ricochet on one side, Gable and Elias on the other. When you look at the field and who's left, my kind of heart is with Chad Gable. He's kind of the one that I want to see win it. I think Ricochet could be fun, but Ricochet has already had a few moments. He's been a champion in NXT. He's a former United States champion. He's had some big wins on TV, big win against Drew McIntyre in the tournament. So, you know, who needs it more than anything? You know, Joe's an established veteran. Baron Corbin's already gotten his title shots. Plus, he's sitting on the throne every week, putting the crown on. That's got to be a jinx. So when you look at everybody that's left, who can benefit the most? Chad Gable. The dude is a stud. He's an Olympian. WWE should have been doing something with this guy 3 years ago, much less now. So when you look at who's left, it's, you know, I feel like it's got to be him. And I think he should beat a really tough heel in the finals. Now, Gable and Ricochet would be an absolutely beautiful, magnificent wrestling masterpiece that I would love to see. But it might mean more if Gable's able to beat someone twice his size, like Samoa Joe. German suplex that big bastard around the ring and display his power, and then get the big upset over him or something like that. Winning the King of the Ring that way is the total underdog. So I don't know how you, or you put him in there against Corbin. Same thing. I think Gable and Corbin could actually, I can't believe I'm about to say this, but I actually think Gable and Corbin would be a better match than Gable and Joe. I do. Just given Joe's age, stage he is in his career, I think Corbin is good in the ring. And I think if they put Gable and Corbin together and Gable beats him, that would be awesome. It would really help get Gable over. I think that would be better than him beating Joe, because the fans, of course, hate Baron Corbin. So if he loses, when everybody's expecting WWE to disappoint us with a Baron Corbin victory, and Gable beats him, oh, that could make for a great moment at Clash of the Champions. So Gable is who I am rooting for, and I think the best match to have at this point, given who's left, is Gable and Corbin. That should get Gable over as a massive babyface if he's able to beat that Applebee's waiter and put that crown on his own head instead of Baron Corbin's ugly bald dome. So anyway, that's what I want to happen. What do you guys think about my, I don't know if you call it a prediction, but about my hope? Let me look in here. Double check the chat. All right, we're looking good. Didn't miss any super chats. By the way, if I ever do miss a super chat during these podcasts, one thing I've been doing the past couple of weeks when I've missed them, I can go back and see them all after the fact. So if I see one that I didn't answer, I will go over to your YouTube channel. I did this a couple times last week. I'll go over to your YouTube channel and I'll leave a comment for you over on your comment page. And I've done that a couple of times for those that I've missed and thanked them for their support. So I always do that if for any reason, if I'm so focused, I miss one or two. You will hear from me in some way. I promise you that. I appreciate everybody's support. As far as what else we saw on SmackDown, we had Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross dropping a match. More champions losing. Great. They dropped a match to Fire and Desire, I guess is what they're calling themselves now, Mandy and Sonya. And I've been saying for months, ever since they were put together, that I didn't feel like they really matched. And they're two completely different gimmicks, which doesn't necessarily mean they can't be a tag team. I just never felt they were real good together. Oh shit, I thought my stream froze, but it didn't. I never thought they were really good together, you know? I just didn't think that they needed to be a team. I thought Sonya needed to be on her own. I liked her more on her own because she's kind of that like ultimate fighter type of thing. But they never split them up. They just kept them together. As the months went by, they're now kind of more of a team, I feel like. And it makes sense that they're going to be in line for maybe a run with these titles because they are an actual team. The tag team division doesn't really have teams aside from the Iconics, and now Nikki and Alexa and Bayley and Sasha, of course, were a team. And now Mandy and Sonya have been together for so long that they qualify as well. Liv Morgan, I think, is on the verge of a brand new reintroduction and push, so I don't think her and Sarah Logan are really going to be teaming much anymore. Ruby Riott is still on the shelf. So the fact that they might be giving Sonya and Mandy here a small run with the titles, I can see that happening. Sure. I think it might be more fun to give them back to Bayley and Sasha for a little while and let them do the two-woman power trip or whatever when they're carrying all the belts. That might be fun. But if not, Fire and Desire being champs, yeah, I can probably see it. WWE likes Mandy Rose. She's getting better in the ring. I don't hate her in the ring, and I've always liked Sonya Deville. And I hope eventually Sonya Deville becomes a world title contender in the company. I think anybody with any sort of like MMA background just might have a little bit of a leg up credibility-wise, and I tend to root for them. So this just might be the beginning. Have Sonya cut her teeth as a tag team champion for a while before eventually moving off into singles at some point in the next year, you would think. We had a lot of 24/7 stuff going on. I think we had 3 title changes on SmackDown. Drake Maverick is trying to leave the building. They cut to backstage. He's leaving the building with his wife. Still don't think they've constipated this marriage. That's what we say, right? Constipated. And he's trying to get the hell out of the building. And then all hell starts breaking loose around him. Wrestlers are showing up. And then out of nowhere, completely off frame, Grand Metalik just comes sliding in on one of those equipment carts right across the screen. And Maverick kind of stops and breaks and lets him slide by. It was hilarious. And I had mentioned on Twitter that he wasn't going after the title. Who's to say he just doesn't like to do that? Maybe he just likes to play around. What else? You got to entertain yourself somehow backstage. So I'd be going for a ride around on carts too. So that might have not even been 24/7 segment related. But Bo Dallas, as the smoke clears, is actually able to roll up Drake Maverick and win the title. Bo Dallas is a champion once again in WWE. He would be chased all the way into the ring, and then Drake Maverick would roll him up in the ring and win back the title. And as he's trying to leave, R-Truth is hiding behind the King of the Ring throne. And he comes out and rolls up Drake Maverick and wins back the title. So that's all I care about. When it comes to the 24/7 division, all I want is for R-Truth to be the champion. That's all I care about. Carmella, incidentally, I have her written down here in my notes. She is taking some time off from the company, apparently. She made a big social media post a couple days ago. She issued a statement on basically wanting to enjoy life for a while. She's kind of detached herself from social media. I believe this all came when she was taking a little bit of time off for an injury or something, and then realized that, hey, it's kind of nice to be off and to smell the roses a little bit and to maybe clean up yourself mentally or anything like that. And it sounds like that's what she's doing. And I read her statement, and I did like the fact that she said, normally I'd just be buried in my phone and doing this, and I can't tell you just how good it feels to not have to be so involved in social media and what others think and all of that. And she's kind of detached from the world, and I highly recommend that for anybody. I just liked what I read from her. I'm glad that she's taken steps to kind of do that, because mental health is important. And when you have a job that's so physically demanding and mentally demanding, and you're young, and you never want to have that feeling of life is passing you by kind of thing. So I'm glad to see that she recognized that and she's taken action, and I wish her the best. And I know that she's with Corey Graves now, so hopefully they are happy together. Back to Smackdown now. We had another promo in the ring with Randy Orton and Kofi Kingston. Not much newsworthy out of this, just more of the same between these two. They would lead to a brawl. The Revival would hit the ring, and the three of them would absolutely destroy poor Kofi Kingston. And I mentioned earlier on, as it relates to their Clash of Champions match, I'm hoping at main events. I'm hoping that Seth and Strowman do whatever they're going to do previously, and they have their two matches back-to-back, saving the main event for these two guys. And maybe you do a title change. I think it's time. I think you do the title change here, put the belt on Randy Orton. That way, you can do the blow-off at Hell in the Cell. I think that would be the most sense. Put these two guys in the cell. I know Randy was he in the cell last year against Jeff Hardy? That was last year, right? So it would be two cell matches in a row for Orton, but given the nature of the feud with Kofi Kingston, there's a lot of bad blood there. A lot of personal history and feelings dating back 10 years, and even recently in the newest version of their feud, Randy Orton involving Kofi's family and everything. So this storyline, I believe, calls for a cell much more than Strowman and Rollins. I don't know, maybe if you add the Fiend to it, a cell would make sense, but I think the best thing to do here would have Randy Orton defeat Kofi, defend the title against him in the cell, and be done. And that'll be the end of the Kofi run, and Randy Orton will go on to Survivor Series to potentially, I've talked about this before too, if all of this plays out, potentially face Bray Wyatt. Given all of their history, they could both be champions. If Randy Orton wins the title at Clash and successfully defends it at Hell in the Cell, and Bray Wyatt wins it at Hell in the Cell, and you got that champion versus champion match slated for the Survivor Series in Chicago, it might be a hell of a lot better than the WrestleMania match. I thought the WrestleMania match for the title a couple years ago fell completely flat. This would be a whole lot different when you got the sick, sadistic, mind game playing Viper going up against somebody that's even nuttier than what we remember Bray Wyatt to be previously. That could be fun. I'd be into that. I'd also be into Aleister Black getting on the map here. He had a match and beat Shelton Benjamin, I believe, on SmackDown. But I'd love to see an Aleister Black and Bray Wyatt program sometime in the future. That would be awesome. So if he could get on the map, that would be particularly pleasing to me. But I don't know what they're doing with Aleister. I just think the dude's got an awesome presentation. He's awesome in the ring, and I want him to be getting involved here somewhere. And maybe he can be a challenger for Randy Orton. If Randy Orton does, in fact, beat Kofi and move on as champion, a program with Aleister could be fun. Whatever they do, I kind of feel like this is it for Kofi. I've kind of been predicting him to hang on. I haven't really been predicting him to lose the title yet, but I've just felt like Clash has been on the horizon. That's the pay-per-view that I've been eyeballing as the end of Kofi's run, and I'm a little bit sad about it because I'm really glad that Kofi got this opportunity, but I think it's time, as much as I hate to say it. And the main event, finally, on SmackDown was yet another apology demand by Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan is out there to demand yet another one from Roman Reigns because Bryan had nothing to do with it, and the week before, Rowan was outed as the guy that initially attacked Roman Reigns. Daniel Bryan freaked out, started slapping him around, went in the ring to confront Roman Reigns and got speared for his efforts. So now he's still, I don't know why Daniel Bryan gives a shit so much, but he still is demanding an apology from Roman. So as Roman comes out, his music's playing, he's coming down to the ring, he's attacked from behind by Erick Rowan. Rowan completely decimates him. Then he gets on the mic and cuts a pretty decent promo. Not even that bad. But it just doesn't make any sense, though. At one point, he's doing whatever Daniel Bryan says and letting Daniel Bryan slap him around. The next minute, he's saying, yeah, it was me all along. What are you going to do about it, Daniel Bryan? Even tells Daniel Bryan and dares him to come back in the ring and slap him again. And Daniel Bryan doesn't, of course. So Rowan goes back out on the outside of the ring, grabs Roman Reigns, and puts him through a table. And that match now is set, and it's official for Clash of Champions, Erick Rowan versus Roman Reigns. Now, one thing I thought was really ironic about this match is that when I was home watching this on Smackdown, and when they announced the match, everybody on Twitter was bitching. What? You call that a pay-per-view match? Roman Reigns versus Erick Rowan? What a crock of shit. Why? Why is that a crock of shit? What is the biggest complaint that wrestling fans had with Roman Reigns prior to his leukemia when he was on top of the world? Main eventing all the time. Always facing the top guys. Always wrestling for the title. Main events. Even when he's not champion, his matches are the main event. Finally, now they're using Roman Reigns in the complete opposite way. He's been nowhere near either world title since he relinquished it last year. And now he's working with a guy that WWE feels like they're trying to build back up. A legit mid-carder. A guy, if you remember, that was defeated in like 5 seconds to Roman's cousin at WrestleMania. You can't get any more buried than that. So Roman working with Erick Rowan might be a way for WWE to push this guy. Now, yes, it's a big guy that attacked Roman Reigns and tried to kill him. So I think if Roman Reigns goes into Clash of Champions, he's probably going to beat Erick Rowan. No surprise there. So I don't know how far Erick Rowan's push can go if he's just going to lose his first match against Roman Reigns, but he likely will. But if working with Roman is a way to give Erick Rowan a bigger match and a bigger spot on the card, that's what it's designed to do. So which is it? Do you not want Roman Reigns involved in every main event? Or do you? Because the same people that complain about Roman Reigns winning championships all the time are complaining about this match with Erick Rowan. This should be the spot on the card that you want Roman Reigns to be in the middle of the card. My computer's making a ton of noise. We're still up and running, right? This is the type of spot on the card that you would want Roman Reigns to have. Working with a young guy in the mid-card, potentially even putting him over. Probably not, but maybe. If you do another match at Hell in the Cell, that's possible. You could put Roman Reigns and Rowan in the cell too. Or maybe Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns. I still don't know. I'm almost giving up on trying to figure out where all this is going to lead. But I still think it would be cool if Daniel Bryan was behind this and he's just been trying to confuse the shit out of everybody ever since. I still think that would be a good way to go because Roman Reigns and Daniel Bryan could probably have a pretty awesome program together. And if you put these two guys in the cell, magic could happen. You never know. But now we're going to get Roman Reigns versus Erick Rowan. I don't know what this means. I don't know if The Rock is maybe tied in here. Maybe Rowan is attacking Roman Reigns because he wants revenge for The Rock beating him at WrestleMania. I don't know. I thought maybe The Rock could come back and do something with Roman Reigns at WrestleMania next year in Tampa. I thought that was likely or possible. At least I want it to be. So I don't know where any of this is leading, if they really have any long-term plans for this feud, or if it's just been booked on the fly every week and they don't even really know where it's going to lead. But if this is all part of some long-term plan, then I'm willing to ride it out as long as it goes. But I think it's safe to say that myself and none of us really have confidence in WWE being able to pull that off. And I just realized as I'm looking at the stream here, I misspelled tournament on the ticker. King of the Ring Tournament. I don't proofread these things. I just type them. Hopefully I didn't make any other typos in there. I did that at work one time because I work in restaurants and I was typing up a special and I wrote that we have grilled sea ass for dinner. Really delicious. How do you like your sea ass? Do you like it grilled or in the pan? What do you like? Yeah, typos out the ass for me. Anyway, that wraps up the Raw and SmackDown recaps. Let's just run through what I have written down here for the Clash of Champions card, and it should be mostly complete. By my count, I have 9 matches. The only other one that I could think of that they could potentially add would be AJ and Cedric, but they might hold that off. We might get a 10th match announced next week, AJ and Cedric for the title, but if they don't, this is probably going to be it. So we've got a 3-way triple threat for the Cruiserweight title. Drew Gulak taking on Humberto Carrillo and Lince Dorado. That's probably going to be a kickoff match. I'll wait and think about who I'm going to predict in that, but probably Gulak to retain. We've got Nakamura versus The Miz for the Intercontinental title. The Smackdown title's on the line. New Day defending against the Revival. So the Revival and Randy Orton could walk out of Clash with all the belts. I wouldn't be surprised if they did. Erick Rowan, of course, like I just talked about, will be taking on Roman Reigns. We have Bayley defending the SmackDown title against Charlotte. Becky Lynch defending the Raw Women's title against Sasha Banks. We have Seth Rollins and Braun Strowman, of course, defending the tag team titles against Bobby Roode and Dolph Ziggler. They will then face each other for the Universal title. And then in what I hope to be the main event, Kofi Kingston defending the WWE title against Randy Orton. So that's what the Clash is looking like now. Just to run through some brief ideas, would you put the IC title back on The Miz? You know, and I forgot to mention what he even did on SmackDown with Nakamura. I don't remember. Not important. But The Miz has already won, 7 Intercontinental titles? So Nakamura's reign could be cut short, but you know Sami Zayn's going to be floating around out there, and I think they are in the middle of some sort of a long-term storyline as well for Sami Zayn and Nakamura. So I actually hope that Nakamura retains just for the purposes of the Sami feud, and The Miz just goes on to do something else, or just continues to film Miz TV, and that's it. But the Revival winning, I think that could go either way as well. I think it would be a really cool visual for the Revival to come into the ring as tag team champions and celebrate with Randy Orton, who just beats Kofi for the WWE title. But they might want to have the New Day retain just to get a little bit of revenge because they've been beaten down. Have the New Day retain, but Kofi lose, and then maybe New Day loses the tags down the road or something. I don't know. But yeah, I think the Revival and Orton all being champions at Clash might be a fun visual. Roman, I think, is going to beat Erick Rowan. With the ladies, I don't know what the hell is going to happen. I don't know if Charlotte is going to beat Bayley, setting up Charlotte and Sasha. Maybe it's Survivor Series, but I think one of these titles needs to change hands. And I think, given what we saw on Raw and given the current storyline direction for Sasha and Bayley, I think they both need to walk out of Clash as champs. I kind of want, as it stands right now, don't know if I'm going to predict that or not, but as it stands right now, I think I'm kind of hoping that Becky Lynch drops the title to Sasha. I do. And then Bayley, she just turned heel, and she's got this new attitude. I don't want to see her drop the belt 2 weeks after that happens, so I think she should retain. So I think Seth should retain against Strowman, and Kofi drops it to Randy. And I think Bayley retains against Charlotte, and Becky drops it to Sasha. That's the balance I think I want to see there for the titles. So, yeah, what do you guys think? That pretty much wraps it up for my notes. Before I sign off, I'll go back here to the chat. Answer anything that I missed, maybe some super chats. Any final questions or final thoughts on tonight's show? I got tonight done in about an hour and a half, which is nice. Oh, yeah, and we didn't talk about a lot of the possibilities for the draft as well. There's a couple of little things that I want to see happen with the draft. Number one is I want to see Asuka and Kairi Sane split up. No more Kabuki Warriors. No mas. Let's break that team up. They had no business being together to begin with, and if you want to add depth to your women's roster, why the hell would you not want to have these two women as strong single stars? On opposite rosters or the same, doesn't matter. Just make them singles wrestlers. And I think it would be easier to do that if you just put them on separate brands. So I really hope the draft is a rebirth for someone like Asuka. I hope the draft is a rebirth for someone like Drew McIntyre, who's been suffering a lot of losses. I'm hoping that Kevin Owens can continue to roll. Apparently he was not on the show because he was busy protecting his family from the hurricane. So he wasn't even on SmackDown. But I think the brand split, if it happens the way they're saying it's going to happen, and it's going to be a legitimate separate brand, which, like I said, I'll believe when I see it, then I think a lot of talent can benefit from that. And a lot of talent that's been wasted coming up from NXT and WWE's done nothing with. This can all help. But again, we say this every time. I said this in 2016 when they initially split up the brands. Great. This is going to help talent that's being lost in the shuffle get over more and get used more. But it really didn't. Maybe worked for a little while, but it never works long term. WWE always has good intentions, but they fuck it up every time. So I'm just not that convinced that this draft is going to be any different, but Heyman and Bischoff are on board now, so who knows? And hopefully with the XFL starting in a few months, that will distract Vince. And you got NXT on the USA Network. They're spread real thin, and if they do a draft, I don't know if is it going to be a three-way draft with NXT as well? and they're going to be involved in this, and maybe you take a couple of main roster stars and send them back to NXT. Maybe you move up Matt Riddle, something like that. So, you know, I'm hoping for an entertaining draft on October 11th. And if any of you are going to be in the LA area on October 4th for the first ever Smackdown on Fox, I will be at Staples Center that night, and the plan is to organize a meetup. Before I get out of here, I got one more super chat rolling in from DJ Glenn. Good to see you, brother. Thank you very much. You're awesome. Thank you for the $5. You say that you're at work, just stopping in and saying thanks for the podcast. I love the podcast format you have going on. Thank you, man. I need to hear that because the way I was doing it, like I've described in my past few episodes, ever since rebranding this, it just wasn't working for me. It was way too time consuming, and I wanted to kind of update it and work on my ability to talk about wrestling in a live format when it comes to the current product. When it comes to this day in histories and mic drops and reviews and, you know, and even donation videos, things like that, I'll have those on the old format still. But the live ones, you know, are fun, and they save time, and it allows me to discuss a shit ton of topics at once, which is also fun. So anyway, I want to thank you guys for hanging out tonight. I appreciate it a lot. It was a fun podcast as always. This audio to this will be up on the website for download and available on iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify here in probably an hour or so. So check back if you'd like to download the audio and listen to it when you're working out or in your car or anything like that. And yeah, that's going to be it for me. I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. I have a busy weekend planned. I'm not sure if I'll get up for any sort of a short video or not. If any, you know, big news breaks over the weekend, I'll come up and do like a little quick stream, maybe a mic drop, something like that. But otherwise, you probably will not hear from me until this Monday when I'm back up here live reacting to Monday Night Raw. So anyway, you guys have a good rest of your night. Enjoy your evening, and I'll catch you this Monday for Raw. Be cool. Peace.